I'm Emily Campagno, and also joining me today, Fox Business anchor and host of American Dream Home on Fox Business, Cheryl Casoni, Fox News contributor Tammy Bruce, former State Department spokesperson and founder of Polaris National Security, Morgan Ortagus, and Fox News contributor and host of The Guy Benson Show on Fox News Radio, Guy Benson. Now we begin with growing tensions surrounding New York City's dire migrant crisis. A crowd of more than 100 protesters gathered outside of Mayor Eric Adams' residence yesterday to call out the city's failed handling of the situation. Some accused the city of putting migrants before Americans, while fights broke out with nearby counter-protesters. NYPD officers made several arrests after that violence, including this woman who was seen trying to light the American flag on fire before stomping it into the ground. These migrant protests are now becoming increasingly common throughout the Big Apple as the city's blue leadership remains without an answer to the crisis. So far, over 100,000 migrants have entered the Big Apple in recent weeks, and officials say the city's shelter system is out of room. Many migrants have been left with no choice but to sleep on the streets of this so-called sanctuary city. Tammy, you've been a long-time resident here. What are your thoughts about this?
Well, I was just, we're always hearing about numbers, and it's now 100,000 people is a lot of people. But to the year to date so far, year 2023, from the Customs Border Patrol page, 2.49 million encounters. Now, that does not say that they've seen everyone, right? But these are the people that we know have moved in. So when you think about a sanctuary city, New York is a sanctuary city. California, sanctuary state. Los Angeles, sanctuary city. Incentivizing, right? Or they're supposed to be ready for this. They've invited people effectively to come, that we are here for you. That's a sanctuary city dynamic. So when you've got, 100,000 people straining this New York area, what about El Paso? What about those small towns, the places where the other 2.3 million people have gone? Certainly 100,000 is not 2.3 million. So this is an issue for the country, but it is in part due to this incentivizing by these messages that have gone international, that we want you to come, we are ready for you to come. So, of course, it makes sense. When people come over the border, they don't say, I want to settle in El Paso. They say, I want to go to New York. Who doesn't want to come to one of the greatest cities in the world? Who doesn't want to go to Los Angeles? So these movements are happening by choice, but also this is where people want to go when they're crossing that border.
Cheryl, coming to the other New Yorker here, 82% of New Yorkers say that this influx of migrants is a serious problem, and over half of voters disapprove of the governor's job addressing this crisis.
Because Governor Hochul has been absent during this crisis. Mayor Eric Adams has constantly said that he needed help, he needed assistance. He's been crying for federal funding from the Biden administration. It's a joke what the Biden administration has offered the city of New York. To Tammy's point, this is a right to shelter city. This is a sanctuary city. This is what you get. You get what you vote for in New York. Having said that, it's the way that they've handled that I think is what you're seeing on your screen now play out with these fights that broke out in Staten Island in front of Gracie Mansion over the weekend. New Yorkers are fed up because these communities are being invaded with no notice. There's no input. All of a sudden, it's happened twice. There's two different shelters in my neighborhood, guys. And both of these shelters were filled up in the middle of the night. Ugh. The buses are showing up. I'm not kidding. They're showing up in they're midnight, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning because they don't want the television cameras out there. The way that they are doing this, it is sneaky. It is underhanded. Curtis Sliwa, I got to say, 3 times he's been arrested in the last 2 weeks. Then he goes home to his Upper West Side apartment with all of his cats. He cares about New York. He loves New York, and he's furious.
Well, respectfully, okay, so Cheryl said you get what you vote for. I voted for Lee Zeldin, and that's why, in part, when you see this footage, Guy, people are angry.
Yep, and to buttress Tammy's point on the math, roughly since Biden took office, we've seen 7 million illegal border crossings, including known gotaways, 7 million. So, yeah, 100,000 people, that is going to be a strain on resources, et cetera. It is less than 1.5% of the border crossings on Joe Biden's watch. So I did see Governor Hochul finally, there was a headline that she was calling out the Biden administration. I said, okay, maybe this is too little too late, but at least she's saying something. But then I read what she said, and she tried to blame virtually all of this problem in New York on the governor of Texas, Greg Abbott. She said it all started with Greg Abbott putting people on buses. No, it all started way before Greg Abbott had to deal with these folks, and it starts at the top. And the Biden administration's policies, Hochul's solution that she's out there advocating for is for the federal government to give tons of new benefits to the illegal immigrants, which will be part of the incentive problem and just pour even more gasoline on the fire. It's like, by the way, not only can you come to the U.S., federal taxpayers are going to give you, she was talking about health care and education and housing and all this stuff. That's her big solution. Blame the governor of Texas and make the magnet for illegal immigration even stronger. It's wild.
And isn't that the point? So, your expertise is national security. And the point is, as these local economies and cities are being devastated, at its heart, it's a national security origin and issue.
Well, it's the #1 national security threat, our undefended border. We have over 80-something people on the terror watch list who have gotten through just this year alone. So these are people on the terror watch list. Now, I like to say these are the terrorists that are stupid enough to get caught, but still, these are people that are crossing over the border. So you have geopolitical issues and concerns. Guy and I were just talking about China, Russia. You have those concerns from a geopolitical perspective, but this is our #1 national security issue that we face as a country. And Emily, I was thinking as you guys were having the conversation, the administration has to know this is bad policy. When you have Democratic politicians on the border in Texas saying this isn't good, when you have the mayor of New York City screaming to the Democratic president and to this administration saying this isn't good, I need help, they know these policies are a problem. But here's the thing, I don't think they're paying the price for them politically. And in 2022, they kept the Senate. And when you look at the places that are complaining in New York and in California, these are states, to be quite frank, from a political perspective, will go for President Biden in 2024. So until they start to actually pay a price politically, I'm not sure that they're going to change. I remember back when we had so many Syrian migrants and Libyan migrants that were going to Italy and that were going to Germany, and Angela Merkel started to pay a price politically in Germany for the number of migrants that she was taking in. Then they sort of reversed course. I don't think this administration has paid a political price just yet.
The one thing I would say about that, though, is if you look back to 2022, no argument here that it was an underperformance by Republicans nationally, but House Republicans barely won the House back.
That's a good point.
If they hadn't won some of the races that they did in New York and California, Democrats would still have the majority, and Pelosi or whomever would have the gavel. So I think maybe the immigration issue and a few other of the left-wing failures actually did hammer Democrats in places where they thought they would be safer than they actually were. Question is, will that translate elsewhere?
Yeah, good point.
And I wonder, so to that question, so if we sort of barely started tipping the scales, do you expect that it will in 2024?
Well, it's going to depend on what the public argument is. What is the rhetoric? What are the Republicans going to say? Can they actually not just say, we're not the Democrats, but that here's what our plan is to make a difference here? That we see, and like with crime, we talk about terrorism, over 10,000 encountered criminal aliens, people with a criminal record. You want to know how many of those 10,000 were arrested? About 780. So when we think about what's going on in communities, it's not just terrorism or the use of resources, it's the nature of the criminal aspect and what communities have to deal with. So the Republicans had better explain what they're going to do to reverse this.
Right. And you want to know what communities are having to deal with? Just watch that footage. Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.